It's all good. All right, we are here with Shetan Noir, and cryptozoologist, and we've been studying your site back and forth for a couple of days now. Just
I
getting the
wanted to check on like because it lets me know when somebody's on my site, and I was like, man, somebody from Huntsville,
yeah, you've been
is on there
lighting it
again.
up.
Somebody from Athens. I'm like, who keeps on going on my site from there? So I figured it out this afternoon. I was like, oh, it's it's
Yeah,
the
doing recon,
podcast.
doing recon. Are you from near here? I haven't even looked.
No, I'm actually in Michigan.
Oh, well, hell,
Oh,
okay, that's cool.
yeah.
Well,
It
we're gonna
said
get.
you're.
What was that, Andrew? Sorry.
Oh, I said yeah, yeah. Your website. You had some organizations you're affiliated with up there.
Um, I am affiliated with the North American Dogman Project. I am their Michigan lead investigator,
Oh,
and
really?
I run the Michigan or the Great Lakes chapter of the Center for Unexplained Activities and Phenomenons, and I am the owner of Squatch GQ publications.
So that's D.A. Roberts' bunch, isn't it? North American Dogman,
It is Jody Cooks.
or is he a just? I thought he may be Midwestern Dogman. I get so many Dogman.
Yeah, there are quite a few, but Jody Cook is one of the founders and is still currently running the North American Dogman Project.
Is Nick Valenti involved with that? Is that
No, he separated from the group. There were some um, differences of opinions, and I believe Nick went and
Mhm.
started the International
Oh yeah.
Dogman Project. And but I am loyal to Jody. He brought me in as an investigator, so I am still loyal to the North American Dogman Project.
And I'm telling you, the Dogman has got a PR firm. The likes of they came out of nowhere.
Well,
Dogmen were nothing. All of a sudden,
yeah,
everybody's a Dogman
well,
fan. It's crazy.
the Dogman really didn't start picking up in reports until Linda Godfrey went out and investigated, the reports that she was getting about the beast of Bray Road. And then she started hearing, some rumors about stuff going on in Michigan. So she came to Michigan and investigated. And suddenly people were realizing, oh, just like there's not just one Bigfoot, there's not just one
Mhm.
dog man. There's
Yeah.
actually, several hundred of them. And I think that took people quite a bit of effort to wrap their heads around because, when you say Bigfoot, everybody just imagines that it's just this one creature running around in the woods
Mhm.
all
I
over
didn't
the
realize
world.
people actually thought that until just a few weeks ago.
And it's
Like,
like, no. Do you think there's only one bear or moose out
yeah,
there running around, the wilderness? No, there's a lot of them. And so that's something that people I think have a hard time grasping the reality of, is that we're not just talking about an individual, we're talking about a species
hmm
that, you know, has a strength in numbers, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's Dogman. Um, it's not just an isolated, individual creature like, let's say Loch Ness Monster or the
hmm
Dover Demon or, these um, Hodag or, things like that, where it's just one creature that they're talking about. And there's only, supposedly one of them that's ever been seen in one location. And that's what that location's famous for.
hmm
Things like, you know, Bigfoot and the Dogman, there are so many different reports from all over the United States, let
Yeah.
alone North America, South America, in the world, that there's more than one.
There's only one Mothman.
Mothman, I am not sure on that, if there are more of them, if was just one single one, or if there was a flock of them, a swarm of them, flutter of them. I don't know
That's
what the proper
terrifying.
terminology for a group of Mothman is. I don't know if we identify them as a insect noid or a humanoid or a flying cryptid,
Do we have the
alien.
authority? Do we have the authority to do that now? Can we-
You know, I would hate to bristle anybody's, uh, uh, feathers out there, because a lot of people, like to, throw down a claim on something. But I think a swarm of Mothmen would be, a good term for a group of them.
You think they turn on the outside light in Point Pleasant and they just
No,
in West Virginia, just a swarm
I
of
think they
Mothman?
might tackle the light poles and take those down. I don't think they're too gentle about it.
A gaggle of Mothmen. What if you
Moth.
called them? They called
I
them
like
an
the
Ingrid.
swarm better. I like the
Yeah.
swarm better.
I'm just thinking the gaggle kind of gives it some kind of fruity look to it. Oh, it's a gaggle of Ingrids
I think it's like
or Indrid.
geese or
Ingrid?
duck, right? Like that's what it. I feel like it's
Was
like
it-
birdish.
yeah.
You say
Yeah.
gaggle.
Was it?
Yeah, I think gaggle is like geese or a duck or something like that. I don't know what's the for bats. What's the group name for bats? Is it a cluster or
No.
um? I don't know. I
What
know
was
that
his name? Indrid Cole. Indrid.
that was supposedly, so with the Mothman, you've got all these topics like you've got the Men in Black, and you've got this alien or supposed alien who shows up, Ingrid Cole,
Ingrid
and then
Cole, that's right.
you've got all these other little different elements that go along with the Mothman reports. So there's so much interesting stuff there that it's a
That's a
lot.
joke. I can't believe I posted that. Did you see? That's fell straight for that. I hope it. Corona of bats.
I looked it up. It's an eclipse.
An eclipse of bats. Okay.
No, moths.
Oh, an eclipse of moths. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like something. One of
Well,
those
they
Wiccans
have
would
a
go
murder.
for.
There's a
Murder
murder
of
of crows, so maybe a murder of Mothman. I don't know.
colony. Bats are referred to as a colony.
Maybe okay. How about a catastrophe of Mothmen?
I like that.
Eclipse. Yeah.
Like a harem of turkeys.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
An apocalypse of moths.
An atrocity of Mothman. I thought the Ingrid Cole was the Mothman's name. I guess I didn't watch the. I thought it was like
No. So Ingrid Cole is supposedly a person who showed up there in Point Pleasant and was talking to the local town people. He would just show up in weird places, and he told people his name was Ingrid Cole, but he was odd, and there was just weird elements about him that people were just like, I've never seen that guy before. And when they'd ask him his name, he'd say Ingrid Cole, and so they were always questioning who exactly he was. And then after all the Mothman activity disappears, so does Ingrid Cole. You don't hear much more about him after that.
That's such a fast. I got involved with that with the movie. I used to watch it in college all the time because I went to college before, streaming, like 10, 15 years before streaming. And so I had DVDs and I had a big old antenna like I was in a trailer park. It's in my college apartment. So I used to watch that and what's the one that's almost like Kevin Costner, Dragonfly.
Oh, okay. Yep. Dragonfly. Yep.
I watched Dragonfly one afternoon. It was Friday during the summer. During the day, like 2 p.m., scared the shit out of me. I opened my front door. I opened the windows. It is sunny. It's 100 degrees in Alabama heat, and I'm just terrified.
Now, see, I didn't think that Dragonfly was that scary. Supernaturally, but that one wasn't too bad. One that threw me was the first Blair Witch movie.
Oh yeah.
And you had to, so people who watch it at home nowadays, it's not the same effect. You had to be in the theater where you're just surrounded by darkness, and what you're seeing is, point of view,
Mhm.
what they're seeing. And it's like you're right there with them. And it was, now we know that it was, found footage or hoax footage,
Yeah, it's
that they
fake.
portrayed as something more than what it was. But at that time, it was very unnerving because you get to that you're leading up to that very last scene,
Mhm.
that very last clip where as the camera falls down, you see the one guy standing in the corner, and then you don't know what happens
Mhm.
after that. And you go out here, you're like, you're trying to process everything that you just saw, experienced in your brain, and you're like,
Mhm.
trying to piece it together, and and then like, somebody like, bumps into you, or you
Oh
walk
yeah.
around a corner and you get surprised by something, and it's just like it throws you for a second. But I remember seeing that movie, and it was a Friday afternoon, coming home, and I was out in my driveway cleaning out my car, and I did not notice my dad walked up my driveway
Ooh.
to bring me a package that was delivered to his house. And I turned around to shut my car door, and he was right there. And I screamed, "Oh my God!" I screamed so loud, and he was like, "What?" I'm like, "No, I just you caught me off guard." And the movie I just saw, yeah, I'm gonna be on my tiptoes for a while.
You remember at first nobody knew it was fake, and so everybody
Right,
thought that this
right.
had actually happened for like a year.
Because I remember they did a mockumentary on
Mhm.
Sci-Fi Channel about how they had found this footage, and this was the legend leading up to it, and they put this whole process around it. So everybody, and it was like, okay, you could tell it was shot with point of view cameras and stuff like that, and you went and saw it, and you're like, whoa, what is that, and everybody wanted to find out more. And then over the next few weeks you find out, oh yeah, they shot this film for I think it was under $20,000.
Mhm.
And um and it was like, wow, you guys marketed that right. And but then like the sequels afterwards just didn't
Oh yeah.
build up to it.
No, I went and seen that. I had a friend who worked at a theater. He got us all in free, like the entire class. And I didn't even like it the first time I saw it. And I was like, this is stupid. I went back and watched it again like years later. And I'm like, this movie is actually pretty good. Like when you appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. But that perspective of being in that vast darkness of the
Mhm.
theater, especially if there wasn't a whole lot of other people there, and it was just like you were there with
Oh
them.
yeah. We were
That
sitting there cutting
was
up and yelling and stuff though.
Yeah,
Like the whole time.
that was the way to watch it, because it it puts you in the same atmosphere as them, and you were almost there with them.
Hey, but I didn't watch Blair Witch Project in that atmosphere, but you know what I did watch in that atmosphere? Paranormal Activity. My friend came to my house. I had just gotten married, and my friend went and watched one of my friends from high school, and he came to my house. My wife's asleep, and he's gonna leave. It's like 11 o'clock. He's like, you ain't going no damn where. I said, I gotta calm down. And then the ice maker made a load of ice. Oh, God. I was having a come apart. I couldn't drive home. We ended up going the wrong way down a one-way street next to a haunted Mason's Lodge.
Oh, jeez.
I, I remember what you talked about with that Blair Witch is exactly what happened to me with Paranormal Activity. That's the scariest damn movie. That and The Stranger scared me to death too.
It's
With the
just crazy
pillowcase head.
how your mind can just
Oh yeah.
Now,
Take
see, I
you.
don't usually watch like the psychological, horror movies, or but I do love my monster movies.
Mhm.
And I'm so mad they just had it just came out in theaters for like one weekend. It was The Black Demon, about it's the Mexican legend of the
Mhm.
giant black shark.
Oh yeah.
And and they were playing like at 10:30 at night here locally, and I couldn't make it to any of them, and now they've taken it back off. So I'm waiting for it to come out on streaming service, because I'm like, oh, I love me a shark, monster movie, or dinosaur monster movie, or any type of monster movie that is good, and you actually get to see the monster, what it is, and not leaving it up to your imagination.
Well, a little birdie told me there's a way to watch it for free right now.
Ooh.
It's on 1, 2, 3 movies.
Okay.
But be careful with the tabs and the pop-ups. But it's there.
Okay.
I was
Because I think I saw that it was on Voodoo.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
That's a pre-purchase though. It's for when it comes out. Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking. I don't know, Robert Beto from Mexico Unexplained. Me and him talk all the time. He's like a Mexican cryptid historian.
Nice.
We were gonna do a review of it. I don't want to break your heart, but he said it was terrible.
Oh, I wasn't planning on it being spectacular. You know,
we were going to do a review on it Friday night. He goes, I'll still come on your show and we'll talk about stuff, but I can't talk about that movie.
No.
He said that because he's real big on the La Llorona and the Lechuza and all that stuff. He loves it. The Mexican Thunderbird and the Ditch Witch. That's his favorite thing. He sells Mexican not artifacts, but trinkets, I guess. I don't know. But it's like Mexican decorations. He's like a whole wholesaler. But he's got this whole website and documentary channel dedicated to Mexican history things. Kind of like a lot like yours is.
Oh, cool.
Different categories. Yeah.
Cool.
It's all about the La Llorona. The old the crying weeping lady in the ditch that
wants to take your children. Yes.
Yeah. Crybaby Bridge.
Yep.
There's Crybaby Bridge and there's La Llorona. Speaking of the water, I was going to ask you about it because in your bio, I don't get a lot of people talk about the lake monsters. What is the evidence with the lake monsters and the stories behind them?
So a lot of our legends and our stories of lake monsters in the Great Lakes actually go back to not only Native American legends, but the first early settlers who were coming onto the lakes, who had traveled from Europe, France, over the ocean into the Great Lakes area, and their reports of what they were encountering. So I wrote a book on lake monsters and odd creatures of the Great Lakes. And I break them down into 6 different categories, being giant fish, giant turtles, sea serpents, prehistoric marine reptile type creatures, amalgamations, and we do have a report or a legend of a merman, the great Manitou Nibinibus. So that covers a lot of different creatures. And with the Native Americans, you're mostly looking at the amalgamations, which is, I guess you could kind of call them a water dragon, but really when you're looking at things like the great underwater panther in Abishu, it doesn't really look like a reptilian. It's more like a cougar that has horns on the top of its head, spikes going down its back, this long clubbed spiky tail. And it's said that it controls the bottom of Lake Superior, and that the Thunderbird is the one who keeps the underwater panther from opening up the underworld and letting all the darkness and the demons and stuff like that come up from the lake bottom and overtake the lands. So with the Native Americans, you've got Inabishu, the great underwater panther. You've got a creature called Onair. You've got Carcagna. You've got Gassendia. And all of these, different lake monsters have, different stories according to their storytelling traditions, and according to, each different tribe and their different, versions of the tales. Certainly the great underwater panther is probably the best known of the Native American legends. And when I was researching him, I found over 50 different spellings of his name, all being the same creature, but each tribe had a different way of maybe pronouncing it or spelling it. And, there's so many different tribes, around the Great Lakes, that each one of them had a different story, but a similar story to Inabishu.
Got like a dragon look to it.
It does. And it, I went with more of the dragon,
Yeah.
moose type creature, because one of the interesting facts that I found when I was researching my lake monster book is that moose can dive up to 20 feet underneath water to eat underwater vegetation.
They're kind of like a hippo in that respect.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
and
can go to the bottom.
that made sense to me. You're paddling along in your canoe, and suddenly this creature explodes out of the water next to you, and it's a moose, but it's been underwater eating algae and seaweed and
Mhm.
stuff like that, and you don't expect a moose to explode out of the water like that.
Can you
So,
imagine?
oh yeah, because moose are the size of a draft horse. I mean, they are huge,
And,
and you don't expect something like that to explode out of the water next to you.
and what
And
if
they
it
are
was covered
never,
in like weeds and
yeah,
stuff, like
and
a
they
swamp
are
thing?
never happy to see you.
By
Moose
the
are
way,
incredible.
when you said that, I think your dog in the background walked behind you.
Yeah, that's Tigan. She's
It's like right on cue, right when you
yep,
said it.
It's a moose.
yep.
It's a moose.
Moose.
That's my little Tigan.
So it's been a big week for you in the Lake Superior cryptid department with Gordon Lightfoot dying. Yeah.
Gordon is more associated. Everybody knows of the Edmund Fitzgerald because of the Gordon Lightfoot song, and to me it's kind of sad, because you have to realize that the Edmund Fitzgerald is just one of 30,000 ships that have sank in the Great Lakes.
Yeah, I heard it was like a hotbed for him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For that. Only one famous one.
And the only reason that it's famous is because of the modern day setting in which she sank and took all lives with her.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the realization that the ship, the Anderson, was only 30 minutes behind her. And by the time they were passing over where she went down in the lake, they were probably still possibly alive. But their propellers, the Edmund Fitzgerald, what happened was she sank below the water surface, and her propellers, her engines were still going. And once that happened, it drove the ship straight down into the lake bed until it broke apart. It broke in two. And as the lights were going out on the Edmund Fitzgerald as she hit the lake bottom, the Anderson was probably sailing over the top of where she went under.
So you think it went it did the where it what where the waves were on both sides and it broke in like that?
I think it was wake activity, but what I think happened was the Three Sisters, which is you have a 20-foot wave, and right as that breaks over the middle of the ship, a second wave that's 30 to 40 feet hits, and then no sooner does that one break than a 50-foot, 60-foot wave hits.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know from firsthand evidence of the ROVs that went down to look at the Edmund Fitzgerald once she was found, that the holds were not secured down. They did every other one, which meant that any water breaking over the surface of the ship had the ability to go into those holds and add to her weight. When you have that much water crashing over the top of you and your holds are not secured down so that they're airtight, then that water is just going to continue pouring into your ship. The heavier you get, the lower you sink into the water until you are underwater.
Turned into a big bathtub.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I've been in a kayak before that filled up.
I teach courses on the paranormal history of the Great Lakes, so I do a lot of research into shipwrecks and the maritime history of the Great Lakes. So this, I've been discussing this because I just taught two classes on shipwrecks last week, and it's one of the presentations that I offer. So
wow.
I am very well versed in the shipwrecks and the Great Lakes themselves.
That's one of those rabbit holes you can get down you didn't even know existed.
Oh, yes.
I've done it. I've done it like 10 times in my life.
So Shetan, I have a question.
Sure.
Mackinac Bridge, Mackinac Strait. Anything interesting there as far as shipwrecks? Because isn't that where the two lakes meet?
Yeah. So actually, Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are one continuous body of water. But being human beings, we like to name things differently.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you have the Straits of Mackinac, and while there's not anything
That bridge
shipwreck
is scary, but
worthy, there are some interesting things about the Straits of Mackinac. So one is that is a prime area that sea serpents have been reported in. In the 1970s, there were a lot of sea serpent reports in that area. One of the really interesting things is that at one time, that body of water was actually above water and actually had a waterfall going through it. And people who scuba dive have gone down there and have found where there is a formation where the waterfall would have come down. And so that is a really interesting, you know, thing to realize that our Great Lakes throughout their history have changed their shorelines, where the water has connected, where the water has gone. We have over on the Lake Michigan side, um, in the Great Lakes over by Traverse City, in the Traverse City Petoskey area, there is actually what we call a killing circle, and it is where prehistoric man would have made these cul-de-sacs out of stone. And what they would do is they would chase a large prey item like a moose, like an elk or something like that,
Mhm.
down this straightaway that goes into a semicircle, and it's all lined with big rocks so that your warriors have a place to hide so that they're not getting trampled. And once the animal gets down into that semicircle, they can stab it to death without the animal escaping. And a lot of people were calling this the Great Lakes Stonehenge. And it's like, no, if you look at hunting strategies of
Mhm.
our ancestral human beings, of, you know, the people who came before us
Mhm.
and before the Native Americans, this was how they learned to kill or make a kill, and do it with relative, you know, caution and not put themselves in danger.
Is that still there? That formation?
It's underwater, yes.
Okay, I was
It's
looking.
it's under, I think, 30 feet of water. Um, so that means at one time that was above water.
Hmm.
But even like up in the UP of Michigan, they have found mooring stones from ships a half mile inland, which
Whereabouts?
means which means that at one point that was all underwater, and the Phoenicians who were coming here for copper, because the copper found in the UP is the purest copper there is, and they were making that, you know, trip from,
Mhm.
you know, across the world into the Great Lakes area to get that copper. And they were, you know, putting it on their ships and sailing back with it. And that is, you know, there's so many different elements of this. And that is, you know, the reason Oak Island was
Mhm.
called Oak Island was to make it a landmass. They planted African oak trees there that have all been cut down. And that's why it was originally called Oak Island. And
Huh.
that was a navigational point for ancient mariners of, oh, okay, here's that island with the super huge oak trees on it. We know to start looking for the mouth of this, you know, waterway here.
I bet they were big too. Since they weren't disturbed by anything, they're probably 200-300 years old.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Those
until,
giant
you
trees.
know, until farmers came in and were like, oh, hey, we're going to farm on this piece of land and cut all that down. And it's like, no, don't do that. But too late now.
I bet you like that. Not a story, but what happened in that little inlet of Kentucky when the earthquake came and buried all those ships on the Mississippi River.
That's interesting. But in Kentucky, what I think is the coolest is the fact that they found prehistoric shark teeth in Mammoth Cave.
Oh yeah,
embedded into the walls and the ceiling, because that tells you that at one point that cave formation was underwater.
and we've got a cave. We've got a cave here just down the road from where me and Andrew are that has a shark tooth on the ceiling.
Cool, awesome.
And I used to be obsessed with archaeology when I was in middle school. When I would go up to I grew up on the edge of a ridge. I'd go up there with my little kit. I'd find clumps of clams in North Alabama on the mountain. Clams
Nice.
and clams and coral and fish skeletons, and I'd find the spines of fish.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
think somebody I know's kid is getting into it, getting up in the mountains and stuff, and they found the shark tooth.
Cool.
So that's just that kind of stuff will like ruin my afternoon. And the fish on Mount Everest that from when they was on the bottom of the ocean, they got pushed up, and the fish are on top. I'm not going to say I'm not an atheist. Just throwing it out there, but I don't like the people who are Christian and say that the fish on top of Mount Everest is proof of a great flood, because there may be other proof elsewhere, but that's not it. That's not your proof. That was on the ocean floor and got pushed up. It's a young mountain range.
Right.
Like I'll draft with them on a lot of other things, but that like just quit shoehorning that in. Actually, that's not what it is.
Circumstantial, kind of
right.
Anecdotal.
Because the age of those mountains, what are the oh my god, I forgot, Himalayas. They're like that same age as the Rockies, if I'm thinking correctly, because they're of how tall they are and the peaks. So they had to be around that same time.
The Rockies are young, so the Himalayas are.
Rockies are less than 100 million years old, and the Himalayas.
I mean, that's
very similar.
Not even a teenager in mountain years.
Yeah. The Colorado folks get cocky about their mountains until you realize that the Smokies are 10 times as old.
Right.
Yeah, the Smokies have caves that don't have fossils in them because they're around before bones existed. So suck it, Rocky Mountains. I'm talking about. you and your blue cans.
So that was interesting. So to go back to your point about the mooring, where was that in the UP?
So that I believe is on the Lake Superior. So that would be the top of the UP. So the top of the UP is the bottom of Lake Superior, and the bottom of the UP is the top of Lake Michigan.
Yep.
Confusing, I know.
No, I have family there, and I've actually been to like St. Ignace area.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yep. Okay, yeah. So it's Sault Ste. Marie.
Yep, is that up at the top? St. Ignace is right as you come over the Mackinac Bridge, and then Sault Ste. Marie is just before you go over the bridge into Canada.
Yeah, which is very easy to go to Canada. Yeah. Interesting, very interesting. Were you about to say something? Oh yeah. Were you about to say something, Bobby?
No, I probably was thinking with my mouth open.
Oh,
I was trying to pronounce this whatever that word is before Saint Marie.
Oh, yeah, Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, that's how they say it. It's super French.
I heard you say it, and I'm like, how does that say? It looks like salty.
Nope. Yep. Don't even.
It's pronounced
Mackinac. You get Mackinac. You can't. It doesn't. It's not phonetic. Mackinac.
Yeah.
It's like Mackinac.
Mackinac.
Yeah.
Yep. Almost like Shetan Noir. All right, that's I love these visual aids I have for myself. I get distracted. I'm sorry. I'm over here looking around.
Everybody's like Googling right now. They're like, oh, this is what they're talking about.
It's the most fun about having somebody like with historical. Like a lot of times you get people on with this subject matter and they're really woo woo and everything's anecdotal at best. And it's cool to get people like you. And we had Dale, I can't think of his name, who deep dove into the history of all the modern legends. Like, this is better than a ghost story, to be honest. It's like, where did it come from? Like you were talking about where
Right.
it could have been a moose that came out that they saw 40 times and it just grew from there. But what do you think about the speaking of lakes? What was the Loch Ness monster most likely in your opinion / research?
So the Loch Ness monster, without having been, I've read all the books, I've seen all the documentaries, I've tried to follow all the investigations, and there's a lot of people who lean towards it being an eel type creature,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't correspond with what eyewitnesses have claimed they have said. But I am also a huge, um, fan of prehistoric marine reptiles, and I understand with the plesiosaur that its neck does not function the way most people with cryptozoology want it to function.
Like,
They want it to be very swan-like, and
Periscope.
that's not the case. It would have to be, its body would have to be lower in the water for it to raise up its head like that. I honestly, idealistically, it would be a side to side snake like movement that it would do in the water, because the whole point of having that long neck and small head attached to a big body is that you can sneak up on a school of fish and bring your head up into the middle of that school of fish, quickly bite several different fish so that they're dying, and then as the school of fish swims away, those one that you have injured, you can very easily snatch up and eat. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why the plesiosaurs have a head, that's graphically smaller than what your mosasaurs are. Mosasaurs are basically a souped up version of a crocodile head-wise.
Like a big megalodon looking, but crocodile with a megalodon head or versa.
Well,
they doesn't bend up and down. Okay.
Yeah, the head is very crocodile like,
Mm-hmm.
but with flippers and a longer tail. So body wise, they're very similar, but teeth wise, yes, they are similar to the megalodon. But there's a huge difference between your plesiosaurs and your mosasaurs in body styles and head styles. When people say Loch Ness monster, that's what plesiosaur is, what they are identifying, the site of and thinking of it being. Whereas the mosasaur, if you've seen the Jurassic Park movies, that big thing that lunges out of the water and eats the shark in the park, or pulls the crabbing boat down, that's a mosasaur.
Like a giant crocodile shark thing.
Yeah, and if those were still in the water today, I think that it would be much more dangerous to be in any size ship out on the water, because you don't know how aggressive they are, what their territorialness is. If you are, bait fishing or trawling or anything like that, is this going to, would that draw them to you?
I think
Certainly,
so.
I don't think that the whaling that happened in the 18th, 17th and 18th century, I do not think they would have been as successful as they were if mosasaurs were still swimming, because I think the mosasaurs would have been eating everything.
Remember they mentioned the humpbacks in that movie too. Like,
Yeah.
when are you going to catch them? Do they eat all the humpbacks?
Yeah. So, if the men were slaughtering the whales to process them for oil, that produces a scent in the water. So you would think that if there was mosasaurs out there, that scent would have drawn them in, and then the whale, the boat, and the men would have gotten eaten by this creature.
And they basically chummed behind them the whole way. In those little bitty boats, those little whale boats, they would have, a mosasaur would have destroyed that with one flipper.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't nothing but a big canoe. When you look at the sinking of the Essex, the stuff that went down on that was insane. That, I'm talking about, the giant Moby Dick whale, the whale inspired.
Yep.
They all ended up in them whale boats eating each other's fingers.
Yep.
It was a thing. Yeah, it was cannibalism.
Yep.
Is what do they call cannibalism? The things that It was like a phrase. What men do.
Wendigos.
No. It was
Oh,
a maritime phrase. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but it's like what it's called something like what must be done. That's
oh,
one of those sayings like people just kind of brush off.
yep.
I listened to a whole like 10-hour documentary on those. That sperm whale, why they call them sperm whales, it's a whole thing. With the brain matter to look like sperm. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's very creative.
The whale itself.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. I thought it caused the whale looked like that. Nope. When they cut the head up, it looked like sperm. When they cut the top of the skull off.
Because that's
that was the oil they sold. Now that we're completely dark. Do you remember that there's a time in the late have I told this on here before about the plesiosaur was just a found humpback whale? Remember that big craze back in the 70s and 80s, and they would find all these dead whales? And there'd be just pictures of them.
Yeah, the globsters.
Yeah, I was most disappointed in that about any other kind of hoax.
Right.
How it wasn't really a plesiosaur. It's a damn whale. You look at it closer,
Yep.
you can see the jaw. You can see the jawbone.
Yep.
Oh, they stink, by the way. I was in Alaska for work, and there was a dead whale on the beach.
Well, imagine.
And it smelled like high heaven. Oh, good night.
And probably drew in every pet predator within 50 miles to chew on it, eat on it, and
birds, like everything was there.
Yep. That's a huge meal for everything up there. Yeah.
And it probably lasts forever with all that fat.
Yeah, and you saw it's like I forgot what it was, but it was the whale that had the thing for the plankton. You could see
the grill.
Yeah, the
blue whale.
Grill. Yeah.
Might be a blue whale or something like that. But it was like huge. Like if you could hit it with your car and it would wreck your car.
Those things are creepy to look at. I hate looking at whale mouths.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Why does that exist? Who made that?
Rubber for the plankton or something.
What about that video where they blew up that whale? Like 1,000 pounds of dynamite.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one? It went everywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
that's because whales, because of their blubber, float for a very long time, and that draws in sharks, and the sharks want to eat that. So that means if you have a whale offshore, nobody's going into that water because the sharks are very defensive of that meal. So they either have to tow it out deeper into the ocean and, hope it doesn't wash back into shore, or they have to, get rid of it somehow. And the weird, they've shown where when whale carcasses do sink to the bottom of the ocean bed, it takes, I think, between 3 and 5 years for that animal to completely decompose with everything in the ocean eating on it. That's how much substance there is. And then even the bones that are left over are still there after 10 years.
I imagine so. I know how long bacon fat lasts in the refrigerator. I can't imagine a whole ass whale. Jesus.
So segueing, was there any connection? Like you mentioned that Loch Ness was like a one thing, but would there be any sea monsters in the Great Lakes, you think? Or did you speak on that at all? Or
so with Loch Ness, everybody just says, it's Nessie.
That's it.
And
maybe not a plesiosaur or a mosasaur, but like something else.
So with knowing that, so within that locale of Scotland, you have Greenland, you have the fjords, big bodies of very cold water, and we do know that like the Greenland shark can live to be over 400 years old. So people say there has to be a breeding population of Nessie for this creature to be seen, throughout the years. Not necessarily, because if you look at the Greenland shark, these bigger, older Greenland sharks that they catch, they now believe are over 400 years old. So here in the Great Lakes area, we have giant sturgeon. And these sturgeon that are over 6 feet long, they believe that those are over 200 years old. So when you're looking at aquatic species, the bigger they are, the older they are, and those old ones know how to go undetected in the lake and know how to avoid humans for the most part. And either they die of old age or they die of sickness. So here in the Great Lakes, to say, oh, there's no such thing as lake monsters, well, we can't really say that because at no point in our lifetime will the Great Lakes ever be drained. When you consider that our shallowest Great Lake is Lake Erie, and that is 480 feet, at its deepest point. As compared to Lake Superior, that is over 1,800 feet deep at its deepest point. So with Lake Superior, they say Lake Superior never gives up her dead. And there's a reason for that, because with the depths being so ice cold, bodies, sailors, people who go down with the ship, well, their bodies don't form bacteria. They don't bloat. If you don't bloat, you don't float. You just stay.
So it's like a
on the lake bed.
Like frozen.
It's like a morgue.
Yeah.
And there is documented proof of this. Up in Lake Superior, there is a shipwreck called the SS Kamloops. And on the Kamloops, she's over 500 feet deep. Divers who go down, this is a technical dive. You have to be certified for this. They go down to check the wreck to see if it's being hit by anchors, if it's still there, if it's leaking anything. And as they swim through the holds of the ship, a corpse will start following them. And they've named the corpse Grandpa or Old Whitey. And the wake that their momentum as they're swimming through the ship creates, this activates this corpse and it proceeds to follow them through the ship.
I'm not okay with that.
So you have to realize
hell no.
you are about 500 feet deep in ice cold water. There's probably only 2 or 3 of you down there. There is no quick route to the surface. And you're swimming along and suddenly this corpse is interacting with you. You
It's
either
basically just the water stirring doing it, but still.
You either panic and freak out and the people with you have to calm you down, calm each other down, or you have a very bad situation that's going to get worse because you can get the bends from fresh water just as you can seawater. So even though, it's, fresh water, you still have to take your time coming up and decompress as you go. So, and plus, when you panic and you're sucking in more air, you're taking air out of your tank, which means you might not make it back to the surface.
You don't have time to decompress.
So, this is why the Great Lakes are so fascinating to me, because they are just so mysterious. And the more you learn about them, you're like, oh shit, I would never want to dive on that wreck. No, no.
Does that happen every time?
Underwater and a corpse is swimming after me? Nope.
Is that every time they do that?
Yes.
So it just kind of gets stuck in.
His body. There is a maritime law on the Great Lakes saying that you are not allowed to bring up human remains from a shipwreck. So that is his permanent resting place. And because of the design of the ship's hold, he's really never going to be washed out of it. So he is permanently down there.
So he can't get like pulled out when they come out. He just floats back down once it's done.
Yep. Yep.
Where is that video? That's because when you know it's going to happen. It's like when somebody's about to thump your ear. Here he comes. Here comes Paw Paw.
And so now, when they do this, they they go down there with that mindset of, okay, we're going to see this skeleton down there. He's somewhere down there, and we know that he's down there, so they mentally prepare themselves. But I don't think you can actually fully prepare yourself for something like that. You're going to get jump scared at some point.
Is he a full blown skeleton now, or just like a bloated, or not bloated, but slightly more alive?
I think he's a
Like cadaver kind of.
yeah. I'm not going to say that he's still flesh and bone. There might be some still on him, but you have to understand, at that depth, it is so cold that it's like ice water,
Yeah.
and he's very well preserved.
It's like whenever you touch milfoil jumping off a dock. Something touched my leg.
So that reminds me of a story of I just saw it online. This dude buried this statue of Jason Voorhees in a Minnesota lake in Crosby, Minnesota, and it's freaking out like non-local divers, right? So they get to the bottom and they see Jason and they freak out. I bet you it's almost the same reaction as the ship divers in Michigan. But this. What's that?
What wreck was that? Sorry.
The SS Kamloops, Kamloop.
I'm gonna have to look up that. That's crazy. Yeah, and I think that maritime law is like international or something, isn't it? Like,
yes, yep.
Kind of like that George Clooney movie, Perfect Storm.
Yep. And that's why. So you're not allowed. Well, the Edmund Fitzgerald is actually in Canadian waters. Lake Superior is divided up into U.S. waters and Canadian waters, but you're not allowed to dive on the Edmund Fitzgerald. One, because there's human remains on and around the Fitzgerald, and two, because it is protected as a marine sanctuary and a grave site, and the Coast Guard has beacons all around it. So if you're caught diving on it, I believe it's $150,000 fine the first time. Second time is a $500,000 fine. Third time, you don't get a third time.
No. Oh my gosh.
So and that's also to protect you, because that is also a technical dive. That's over 400 feet deep where she's resting on the lake bottom. And not very many people can do that far underwater for any length of time. They start getting narcosis. They start seeing things that aren't necessarily there. And unless you're in a submersible, you don't want to be that deep in Lake Superior without, a prayer, basically.
That's insane. There's actually a picture of him on here. Wow. I'm going to post it up here. I'm not ready for this. Look at that. There he is.
Oh,
yep.
So the ship's sideways, huh?
Yep.
There's the old Edmund. Cool. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Imagine. At least you know, like, he's in that little area. It's not just in the cargo. You're not just in like one of the holes, like you were saying.
Right.
You're swimming around, and all of a sudden something touches your foot. Son of a...
No thanks.
Duffy says if you go deep enough, you start seeing mer people.
Well, actually, Lake Superior is where they have the legend of the merman, the great Manitou Nibba. So, never. And Lake Erie also has the sea hag, which is supposed to be on the lake bottom, that likes to take sailors to, their doom. So,
I think there was a Rick and Morty episode about Mr. Nimbus. Not the actual legend, but he was like a character,
Right.
obviously.
I think mer people. There was a legend in Florida about the manatees being mer people.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's the case here. I think it's something
No,
totally
no,
different.
no, no.
Those sailors just like their women dummy thick. That's what problem was. Like,
That and there were
girl.
probably there were probably 3 sheets to the wind by the time they're like
Starving to death. There's a lot going on there.
fingers.
So let's get to the we'll start our descent. Where are you at on the Bigfoot thing? My favorite podcast topic.
So I believe Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature that, for the most part, originated here on Earth. It's part of our fossil record. Now,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that we don't have alien type creatures that are Bigfoot looking that might come here to Earth. But I think for the most part, Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature that naturally lives here on Earth.
Oh yeah, I agree with you as well. I think I do offer just a smidge of credence to the maybe they can clip in and out. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that's fun for me. But as far as when they're here, they're definitely real flesh and blood. I wouldn't say that they were phantoms at all. Like every once in a while, I hear somebody think they're like a ghost
Right.
in and out. Yeah, that's even the guy I talked to. You probably met him here in Michigan. You ever heard of Randy Bauer from over there in Black Duck?
No.
I don't want to say coming on the scene, but his experiences are getting more popular. He came on. I think I probably had him first he had a book written after him.
Huh. No, I haven't heard of him.
He claims to have seen, like, I've talked to him a bunch, and it's one of those things like, they're not lying, but like, can't believe you're saying that.
Right.
I saw a portal and saw him come out of an orb and form into a flesh and blood creature. That's
interesting.
Yeah, you know how it is. You do the research.
Yeah.
You know how I feel. But like that's kind of, if I had to put like a $20 bill on the table, and that's why we couldn't find the bodies. I like that theory the best.
Right.
Even though
like you almost want it to be true.
Yeah, I enjoy this. Like kids like watching Disney movies. Like I'll dive down, and if it was true, I would like it. But I was talking to D.A. Roberts and his bunch yesterday. And they were they're big cave dwelling Bigfoot people, and they think wood knocks are echolocation and not a stick.
Wow.
That to me, I was like, damn it, that's not even fun anymore. It just means they're monkeys underground. And I had this like epiphany, like, in a cave, you got the fish with no eyes, you got the crickets with the big legs,
Right.
everything can see in the dark, and there's bioluminescent. And in the ocean, you got turtles that turned into like ocean turtles and ocean fish and ocean cows, basically manatee. So why wouldn't there be cave monkeys? Like
Interesting.
the mammals in the ocean turned into dolphins.
I got to add on to that. Help me out with this, Bobby. The Bigfoot sightings with the missing people and the U.S. cave system.
Oh, the cave system?
Ooh.
You've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah. The 411 reports. Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of lines up.
Right.
Go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
That's what that entire show we did last night was on that cave, the cave overlay, the missing 411. And
like the Bigfoot sightings with the
yeah.
You know what also overlays that map is the alleged giant fossils found. Also overlays that map. Same map that the Smithsonians are hiding from us.
Interesting.
I didn't know anything about that. Apparently, giants are a big deal. I haven't even gone down that rabbit hole.
Giants, like big people.
Yeah, like they used. That's like. Am I getting too woo woo for you, Shetan?
No, you're not.
I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence. But
no, you're not.
Stuff. I didn't. I've seen some of the other shows you on. I think I may be more of the more conservative one, so I don't feel as bad. But like the giantoids found in the caves, they found like 9 foot.
Right.
One place still has the receipt from when the government came and got them.
Yeah.
9 foot, 10 foot tall people, not Bigfoot, but people.
Well, we do know that is within the human body's ability. I mean, look at our modern day NBA basketball players. Look at Andre the Giant. All these were supersized human beings. So to say that a human being can never be over 6 foot tall, yeah, we kind of have proof already that they can. I mean, are you just going to tell us that WWE wrestler Andre the Giant never existed?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
He was in Princess Bride, for God's sake.
you know,
Yeah, they said it was like giantism with a pituitary gland or something.
right,
Yeah.
right,
And it just kept on pumping out that growth hormone. And
right.
I think,
But then you look at today's, basketball players, and certainly there are men that are over 7 foot tall that
oh yeah,
that's a giant by any measure. Just really interesting, how the different possibilities are out there.
Here's the giant map. I just don't know why they would hide the giant thing. There's a lot of the stuff I don't know why they would hide.
Well, there was a lot of stuff that they hid because they didn't think that the average person could understand it or
Yeah.
accept it. And nowadays, it's like, please, if you were to, if aliens landed in your front yard, you'd be like, yeah, well, now we've got now we've got paperwork to fill out, so,
Oh yeah, that'd be a pain in the ass.
you know,
Hey
who
Nikki,
do I
how's it
call
going?
first,
I thought about that before. How long would it take us for aliens to become like a back page news if they actually showed up? I bet it'd be less than a month. I bet it would get old quick. Like,
I think it would
aliens here.
depend on how we found them. If they were
Right.
among us, and it would kind of be like, okay, they're here already. But if they like did the land and was that first encounter kind of situation?
Yeah. But how long would that take to get old? I mean, if they didn't just wipe us off the map and just kind of hung out and became integrated maybe with our scientists and military.
Well, I know for a fact they're listening to our shit, like our waves, our radio waves. It's going on forever. So I think they got a briefing.
Here's the reality point that probably is going to screw with a lot of people is if they have the technology to come here and visit us and be like, hi, we're here, and we don't have that technology, then how do we stop them once they're here?
It is a eradication option on the table.
But maybe like they're so advanced, they're like, why bother? Right? Like, it's like, would you step on an ant? Maybe, but most people wouldn't intentionally do it, right?
Yeah, and if they have the technology, it's by default makes them good enough to come here. It's not like us racing the Russians get to the moon in the 60s.
Right.
It's like a evolutionary kind of technology, like it's in their bones. Or maybe they're cloud people, like I'm gonna reference Rick and Morty again, like the fart man on Rick and Morty. He was just a fart, and that was his species. Like they're so far advanced, they're nothing, but they're everything at the same time. It's insane to think about. Like we think it's going to be physical. It may not be. It may just be energy beings. Mr. Duffy came in a different. Said the Bigfoot invasion has begun among us. They wash dishes at our favorite fast food restaurant. That checks out. That guy at Taco Bell last night may have been an alien. Similar to Men in Black.
Colloquial American English.
Yeah, like check on top of it. You stupid goobacks.
Oh,
yeah, but that kind of stuff get you thinking. And like I always say, the big three is what the big three are, like cryptids and / Bigfoot, aliens, ghosts. And ghosts, ghosts are real. Like there's no.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's fun to talk about because the ghost people always bring evidence, like they always have it. That's why they're more fun pound for pound. But my favorite ones to listen to the Bigfoot guys if they're credible and if they're not just certifiably insane from the get-go. They're the best ones. Sometimes those people are on drugs, though.
I've met a few. Yeah, I've met a few.
I bet. Yep. I can just from by default. Or do you do any of the abductee interviews, alien people?
I don't really do a lot of the UFO, just because MUFON is so very good at doing that.
Yeah, they got a system.
You know, I really just stick to the the cryptids and the paranormal. With my magazines, I do my paranormal magazine. I do interview people about UFOs or ufology, and that's about the extent. I don't do any investigations into abductions or anything like that.
I don't really blame you.
Just because
I
I
thought,
know that the MUFON people
yeah,
are very well trained in that, and they're field researchers. They have to go through a whole certification for that. So I always refer people to MUFON. Whatever your state chapter of MUFON is, contact them. They will put you in touch with the right people.
yeah, and the people that refuse to go to MUFON are like clinically insane. Like I just see them everywhere. They're in my house. I see them in my house. I'm like, okay, buddy, calm down. That's a car driving by.
Right.
Like I know I get them, and I'm not even popular at all. And I can't imagine how much stuff you get sent. It's got to be just oodles.
I get sent some good stuff, and then I get sent some stuff like I'm like, what am I
Yeah,
even reading? I they must have done like speech to text, but I have no idea what even they are saying right
I
now.
mean, like sometimes the pictures and the videos
Oh yeah.
that like I consider myself in the past. I would have said I was pretty avid outdoorsman, and people that say they're outdoorsmen too, and then they send me this stuff from the woods. I'm like, this is not a Bigfoot. What are you talking? Have you ever been outside before? Is this your first day on the internet kind of thing? Like this
Well,
not
what I find funny is like people will send me a picture of a bear,
Mhm,
walking on all fours or on on two legs. But because of the way that the bear is looking or something like that, you can't really make out the head.
mhm,
Now, my mom works with black bears. Where she lives in Minnesota, she has black bears all around her
mhm.
property. I know black bears. I sit within 6 feet of black bears and take their pictures. I know a black bear when I see one, and I'm like, that's a black bear. No, 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 it's a Bigfoot. Okay, show me where the huge butt muscles are on it. If it were to stand up, show
Yeah,
me the
it's
domed
sucked in.
head. Show me the kneecaps, on the back legs.
And the
Oh, there
elbows.
are none. Okay, so no, it's not a Bigfoot.
I thought by and plus they have little short legs when they're stood up. They look like they're doing the sag like they're a gangster.
Yeah,
He's all, well, check out this. It's a while I got you situation.
There's a bear farm up in Michigan, right?
there's
Os-
Oswald's Bear Ranch up in the UP, but they've kind of come under fire within the last few years, from DNR and the federal government because of um, uh,
treat,
people saying that they're not taking proper care of the bears.
but definitely there's a chance to see one.
Oh
at
yeah.
Oswald.
What do you think that is?
Oof.
So without really knowing,
Look at those elbows.
yeah, it definitely looks like that is the back of the creature because you can see kind
Mhm.
of an indent where it would be coming down between two shoulder blades. But without actually knowing how high the camera is off of the ground, how far a distance away the creature is from the camera, um, it's kind of hard
Actually,
to
kind of.
say.
Actually, kind of know that. It's
Okay,
it's about chest high to a dude, maybe 4 or 5 foot off
okay,
the ground. It's a game camera.
okay,
And that's about I'd have to look it up. That's about 10 to 15 feet at the most.
okay,
Like it's adult man height is what that is.
okay.
What did I do with the other stuff? I just wanted you to see it. That's from my
Yeah,
Randy out in Minnesota.
okay.
He sent that's some of the other stuff he sent me is clearly a deer, and I like Randy a lot, and so I don't say anything about it. But One of the things is a deer. I mean, the rest of the stuff's not, but one is. So I'm like, that's a deer, Randy. I'm like, okay. I've seen deer before. I'll look. Yeah, but that's it's not far. He's got other pictures of that same shot,
Okay.
and it's inside of about 10 foot would be. I'd say to say I'm not lying, it would be 15 feet at the very most.
Okay.
How far away that is, because it's not zoomed in. It's just a night vision.
Okay.
It's just not. I want to go Occam's razor on everything just to keep myself in the realm of the living.
Right.
When I started doing this, I had to really reel myself in because I was having an existential crisis. I'm like, this is weird. Like I'm between two worlds right now. Everything is crazy. I don't trust anything. It was like, you think you're joking. Everybody's, oh, it's just a podcast. I'm like, no, man, I was talking to some wild people.
I do the same thing because I own Squatch GQ magazines, and I produce 2 cryptozoology magazines and a paranormal magazine. And so I kind of have to be, very open to all the different possibilities. And then I produce a dinosaur magazine. So I'm like, fossil record. Thank you. Concrete, of species. And then I produce a rock hound and prospector magazine. And I'm like, gemstones, easy, they exist.
That's a thing. I do the same thing with the paleontologist I have on. It's like a palate cleanser. It's like sorbet.
Yeah.
It's like smelling a coffee grounds at Yankee Candle, in between the nutmeg candle and the other the vanilla.
Right.
Andrew brought that up the other day. He goes, your guests are what'd you say, contradicting each other. I would have the guy with the spirit box one day, and the next day I had a guy who's a paleontologist,
like a hard science guy.
I had a medieval historian, and then I can't remember what was on before that. The guy exploring Gettysburg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the first time it happened, I didn't even know I needed it. I had all that woo woo stuff going on, and I'm like, man, I'm not trusting the lights in the sky anymore. And I brought on Katie Turner, not Katie Turner, I don't know, Erica Lukes, who is Skinwalker Ranch debunker.
Right.
And I'm huge for Travis Taylor. He's from here where we're at now, and love Skinwalker, but it felt good to have a debunker. It was like, I kind of like this conversation, even though I really want to talk about Skinwalker. It felt good to be like back. It felt like reality, like somebody flipped a light on it. Last call had that same kind of feeling.
I think it's natural. People don't want too many unknowns. Like if it's too many unknowns, it's uncomfortable, right?
I didn't know I needed it though. It's like getting slapped. It's like when you're.
Some people are fine with it. Like I'm fine with like not knowing everything.
Right.
But there's people that like want to like everything has to be explained.
Right.
Oh yeah. I love Skinwalker. You like the Skinwalker Ranch show?
I do, and I come at it from all angles, and I'm also looking at the outside realm of that. So like Travis came clean, with on the show this season. Oh yeah, I was also working for the government while I was doing the show. Well, everybody knew that last year. Yeah. Like it had been leaked, and so this was their way of covering that topic. And it was like, yeah, we already know that, Travis. We know that you were an informant for the government, and everybody on the show acted so surprised that he was doing this.
They knew it for years.
Yeah,
he's worked for the government. Like we work close to each other. Like we work close to Travis. I'm almost Travis adjacent, is what's crazy.
Right.
Like he came out that he was on the head of the UAP task force.
Right.
He was like the main dude.
And they're like, we didn't know that. I was like, how could you not know that?
He announced that he was on a show that I listened to every morning, like a year and a half ago, talking about that.
Right.
About how he was the head of the UAP. It wasn't like a secret. I mean, it was a secret. He was head at first because of national security. But he wasn't like keeping it from the people of the show. I mean, it's just how it's shot.
Right.
Because we think they shoot it like this season was shot in like 2021.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's keeping that task force wasn't a thing until after that season began. I really think Travis is a class act. I didn't. I like the fact that she was a really realistic guest, but I was really disappointed we weren't about to go deep on Skinwalker. And then
Yeah,
I
I
posted it.
like Skinwalker. I have a hard time with the believability of some of the things that they show on that Blind Frog Ranch, which is
Mhm,
supposed to be an adjacent property.
mhm.
I think, and other people might not, you know, like this, but I think they are just cashing in on the whole high strangeness, phenomenon and trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, and how easy it is to make something happen in the desert at night.
Right, right,
Oh, there's a light. You can see anything. I don't give the blind frog a lot, and it seems like a generic skinwalker. It's like bootleg skinwalker.
right, right. And I
This is
think
the
that's
same.
pretty much what it is they're cashing in on the popularity of the phenomenon that happens with Skinwalker Ranch and using it to promote whatever they're promoting, whether it's the show or their individual businesses or what have you. It certainly makes for interesting TV, but when you're watching these shows, you have to have that lifeline to like reality where you're not being sucked down the rabbit hole. You can leisurely step back out of it when you want to, but I know a lot of people who just become fully invested and they're like,
Mhm.
they're telling the gospel truth. No, they might be singing a few hymns off key, but they ain't,
Yeah,
it ain't the gospel.
it's still Zach Bagany. No matter how many Travis Taylors are out there,
Yeah,
they have to
yeah,
make money. They have to get ratings. It's not going to be. It's not. I mean, I don't think that Travis Taylor. I don't think they're lying about anything. I think
no,
they may be sensationalizing. Like, oh
yeah,
God, I got a
it's
headache.
like you said, it's all in how they edit, the show, and you might be saying very honestly recounting something that happened, and they apply it to something that makes it seem even more, over the top, and you're like, that's not how it happened, but that's on you to go. They put that on you as the person on the show to go to all the conventions and have to explain yourself to the fan base of, well, that's not really what happened, this is what happened, and that's how they edited it.
Hmm. My favorite example of how sensationalized Skinwalker is. Have you seen the one where the guy broke his phone? I think it was in season 2. And
Yes, I did. Yeah,
he had the iPhone and it was out of its case and broke and it kept scrolling. I'm like, well, they do that when they're broke.
yeah,
Your phone's not possessed. It's clearly broke. Like it looked like somebody hit it with a baseball, and it's sitting there auto scrolling. I'm like, well, yeah, it's going to do that, man. I'm almost like shame on you for even putting that in there.
right.
I almost consider it like a step back, even
Well,
though yeah,
that's a low hanging fruit they're trying to
it
swing.
really is. And some people don't like. I picked it out first thing. I'm like, his phone's broke. He's had it in his pocket. That's the reason it's doing it. I hate the fact that was part of it. And Travis is like, his phone's going nuts. I'm like, Travis, man, you're a rocket scientist. You know why the phone's doing
Right,
that. You have 10 PhDs. You work for Radiance, for God's sake. You know why that phone's doing it, Travis. And they must have backed the truck up for him because he's not he says he won't take his daughter out there, but he's still coming back out there.
right, right.
His daughter wanted to go and she wouldn't let him, or he wouldn't let her. So I guess that's a little bit of evidence.
Yeah,
Maybe you just don't want to get bit by a rattlesnake.
that could be it too. Certainly that is a potential,
Mm-hmm.
issue out there.
Just like Montana. Hell, it's an issue here, but we got snakes don't rattle here. They're all quiet and just equally as venomous. the cottonmouths and the copperheads.
Yeah, no
Of
thanks.
course, you're in Michigan. Of course, you're in Michigan. You don't have that kind of thing.
We have one. We have the eastern rattleback, the Mississauga, and it's a very fat, very thick rattlesnake, and they're very lazy. So you really have to piss them off to get bit. So, and that's about our only venomous snake up here. But I travel quite a bit, and I usually travel with my 3 dogs. So I'm always, like when I go hiking, I'm like, yeah, let's, put you guys in the stroller and just push you along,
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Eastern Masawaga rattlesnake, huh?
Yeah.
Fat. Those are fat. Wow. Golly.
Well,
Okay.
they have to be a little bit chubby to survive the winters up here,
Yeah. I've always heard there were no poisonous snakes up there, but I figured it had to be one. I mean,
Yeah, we just have the Mississauga.
Like they're in Montana and North Dakota. I mean, why wouldn't they be like 400 miles to the right?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. I know Montana's colder than Michigan. I guess sometimes.
Depends.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've been to one of those. I need to go somewhere else. Well, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. It's been pretty good now that we learned everything about the Great Lakes. I wasn't expecting that one. Who would have knew Gordon Lightfoot would have provided entertainment days after his death? What was the other song he did? Knocking out my back door. What was the other song? God Almighty.
Sundown. Was it Sundown?
My back stairs.
Yep.
My back stairs. Yeah. Okay. All right. Enough with the pop up video. Thanks for being on, Shetan. Where can we find you? It's I put the your website already in the description.
Oh,
So
sure. So you can find me on Facebook, Shetan Noir. That is my personal page. On Amazon, you can find the magazines under Squatch GQ magazine. If you type that in, it will bring up all the current books and publications that are available through my magazine company. And those are the best places to find me, on Facebook and on Amazon.
Squatch GQ sounds like a fun name for a podcast.
My podcast was called Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Podcast, and I was doing that and then writing for the magazines, and then I ended up owning the magazines and don't have time for the podcast anymore. So,
It's not a bad problem to have.
But my paranormal magazine is called Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal Magazine, so I just took the name of the podcast and made it into a magazine.
Okay, that makes sense. Paranormal Vest. I'm about to change this one to the Caffeinated Cryptid. and I'm going to become more nichey, because what I have now is kind of like I started with my friend in the basement kind of podcast name. And so the paranormal people answer my emails and stuff. So I'm like, I'm just going to go paranormal. They're more fun anyway.
Cool.
Not a bunch of stick in the mud. It's like trying to find a hospice nurse. God forbid.
Tight.
All right, everybody. Oh yeah. The hospice nurses are a freaking cult, man. They will not talk to anybody.
No.
All right, folks. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Check out Shetan's stuff.